Sorry, boo.
It's all good. All right, I'm about to stream live to YouTube and then let everyone in 2 seconds.
Okay.
Oh, my screen is, oh no, my screen's not.
Sorry, boo.
It's all good. All righty. Awesome. I think we are ready to go live. So alrighty. It is 7 o'clock, so it's go time. I want to welcome everyone who is here this evening for Can You Imagine Creative Careers in Art? My name is Brandy Keller. I am the Assistant Director of Admissions here at the College for Creative Studies, and I'm joined by our other amazing Assistant Director of Admissions, April Seghetti. And we are excited to present today's information to you so you can get inspired and learn about all the many opportunities, amazing, unique opportunities to have a career in the arts and design disciplines. April is going to be here in the chat answering any questions that you all have, and I'll be doing today's presentation. And because we're art school, we love our visuals. I'm actually going to turn off my camera while we're presenting today, but at the end, I'll turn it back on for our Q&A. So let's get started with Can You Imagine? So a little bit of background for those of you who are new to learning about CCS or who haven't heard of our school before. We are an art and design college located in the heart of Detroit, Michigan, where we've been for over 100 years teaching all facets of art, design, craft, and media. And so we have a ton of alumni who are doing amazing things in their careers from all these various disciplines. So I want to start with, before we get started, I should warn you, I'm pretty interactive with this presentation. So I may ask you to answer some questions in the chat box or raise your hand using Zoom. Please indulge me, right? I'm sure you all are tired of just sitting and staring at Zoom meetings. So we're going to be a little interactive today. So let's jump into things. First alum I want to introduce you to graduated from our transportation design program, but has made a name for himself in the entertainment industry. His name is Tim Flattery, and he's a creative concept artist and designer who is also not only the department chair of entertainment arts at CCS, but also the dean of undergraduate studies at CCS. But CCS is not the only place he works. He's actually a world famous concept artist, concept designer. He's worked with the likes of Steven Spielberg and Tim Burton on more than 40 films in over almost 30 years. In fact, I want to see if anybody here today has seen some of the films that Tim Flattery has worked on. So if you've seen any of these films that I name shortly here, I want you to put an exclamation point in the chat box. Every time you hear a film that you have seen, put an exclamation point in the chat box. So let me know if you've seen Men in Black 1 or Men in Black 2, Hunger Games, Pirates of the Caribbean, Captain America Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Captain Marvel, Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame. I don't see any exclamation points. Has no one seen any of these movies? Oh, okay, Dakota. I was like, come on now. I know you folks have seen these films. Awesome. I see the exclamation points coming in. Yeah. And so as a concept artist, Tim has brought to life ideas for characters, environments, vehicles, and hardware for all the films that I've listed just now, as well as many, many more. In fact, there are only 6 Batmobiles in the history of all film, and CCS alumni designed 2 of them. Tim was one of those alum. He designed and supervised the construction for the Batmobile for Batman Forever. And Ed Natividad is a graduate from our illustration program, who's also a concept artist, and he actually created Batmobile as well. So yeah, amazing, amazing things happening in his career. Sarah Bromley is a graduate from our fine arts program or art practice program at CCS. She graduated in 2010, but when she came to CCS from South Africa, she was seeing a professor do some CGI work or computer generated imagery on a screen and fell in love with it. So she decided she wanted to go into CG work. She now works here in Detroit at Armstrong White as a CG artist. But prior to that, she worked in London as a build technical director for double negative visual effects. And the first film that she worked on was DC Films' Justice League. She recently, when she was there, worked on the global blockbuster Black Panther. If anyone loves that film, like I love that film, which hopefully is a lot of people, make sure you put Wakanda in the chat box, show some love for Sarah Bromley. Next, we'll talk about Kayla Donaldson. She is a very recent graduate. She just graduated in 2019. But before she even graduated from CCS, she was already being noticed internationally for her work around footwear design. She actually showcased her work in the New York City CFDA, Fashion Future Graduate Showcase. For those who aren't familiar, CFDA, the Council of Fashion Design of America, or Fashion Designers of America, is a huge council. She was also awarded the Graduate Fashion Week International Accessories Design Award for concept design in London, England. So the concept that you see on the screen here, where she was reusing computer parts and materials, she actually won awards for that work as well. And currently, as a graduate, she works at Foot Locker. When she was a student, she actually, she works at Nike now, but when she was at school, she won so many awards. I'm running out of breath. When she was a student, there was a competition between Foot Locker, Adidas, and Pensole, and she actually won that competition. So now she's the global Jordan footwear color designer for the kids line at Nike. So she gets to help out with the future of some of their coolest shoes. Next is Chris Houghton. I'm actually going to play a video of him talking about his career path.
I've got a hair emergency!
Yeah, that's great. Let's do line 62 and give me some real stank on it, you know? Get that real full confidence.
I may not have the topping you all know and love, but I am full of the same kapowie jelly I've always had. Cut me open and it'll all flow out!
Yeah, that's great.
Working on Big City Greens is just surreal. You know, my brother and I created the show, and we get to go into work every day and work with this amazing team that we've assembled and really try to do everything in our power to make funny cartoons. It's pretty amazing to see this show grow from being sketches in my sketchbook and ideas that Shane and I would pitch back to each other. You know, it's finally become something huge. We always wanted to create something that was bigger than ourselves, and at Disney we've been able to do that.
Y'all better get used to this view, because this little country boy just got cast for a big city commercial. And it's all because I got kapowie.
Kapowie? Better put some ointment on that.
So yeah, I work with my brother every day, and we're kind of tied at the hip. And then my wife is also our show's color supervisor. So it's a real family affair. My wife and I met at CCS and got married right after school.
I actually started working on the pilot and development of Big City Greens with my husband Chris and his brother Shane. What I love most about working on Big City Greens is, I guess, creating a world, a whole city, painting it and coloring it. I like how the city is created of many different cities, so there's not really one city you can say it is.
I really like voicing Cricket, we'll say that. That's a lot of fun. And I get to kind of go off in my own world for, you know, an hour and a half each week. And it's just me and my brother, and I get to record the main character of this TV series, which is just bizarre. Again, surreal.
That sounded good. You want to give me just one more?
Okay, bye, Gloria. Well, I could just jump right over the moon. Cricket Green, a star.
Great. Now be back here by 5 p.m. to shoot the commercial. And be camera ready.
You kidding me? This kapowie's always camera ready.
Every day I kind of feel 12 emotions by the time I go home. Certain weeks I get to Friday and I'm just crawling. Other weeks I feel like I'm invincible and I could never be stopped. The fact that we've now written over 100 episodes, we've made a ton of shorts, we have ideas for more things in the future. I'm just so proud that we've been able to do that and build this amazing crew of super talented artists and writers. and we just want to see how far we can take this thing.
Pretty awesome career, right? So now I want to go back to another one of my surveys here. I want to see in the chat box, how many of you here are Star Wars fans? If you are a Star Wars fan, I want you to put Yoda in the chat box for me here. We have quite a few alumni who are working in a wide variety of industries and fields who have worked on Star Wars properties. So any Yoda fans out there? Any Star Wars fans out there? Let me know in the chat box. While you're letting me know, I'll show you a few examples of alum who are working with Star Wars properties, starting off with Wendy Frau. She's a graduate from our crafts program, and she began working as a sculptor and puppet maker for Jim Henson shortly after graduating from CCS in the 70s. So she's actually the person responsible for the fabrication of Yoda in The Empire Strikes Back, which is huge. And she also worked on puppets for other Jim Henson films like Labyrinth and Dark Crystal. And she now is a world famous doll artist. She makes her own amazing fairy dolls and crazy creatures. And when we say she's a doll artist, she's a nationally acclaimed doll artist. She is so wealthy that she lives in a castle in England. So she's doing very well in her career. Another great example of an alum who is doing some really cool things in the Star Wars world is Disney Imagineer Executive Creative Director Scott Malwitz. He graduated with his degree in product design back in the 80s. But just recently, he actually led the creative direction for Star Wars Galaxy Edge at Disney Hollywood Studios at the Walt Disney World Resort there. He completed this in late 2019, and it was the largest park expansion in the history of the company. So he actually partnered with Lucasfilms and designed this really immersive guest experience. He worked on everything from the sights, the smells, to the tastes and the textures that guests experience when they go to visit Disney World. And he lives comfortably. He makes sure that guests, when they're immersed in this experience, are living comfortably within that Star Wars universe. But it's a completely new narrative that he's created for the park there. And last but not least, I know a lot of folks really love The Mandalorian. We have two graduates who worked on The Mandalorian, Matthew Dell and Andre Empson, both from our entertainment arts program.
My favorite part of this job is, as corny as it sounds, it's making cool stuff. Designing creatures, like, how cool is that? I go to work and it doesn't feel like work. It's a career. It's like your dream job,
I feel so blessed to be able to say that I live out here and I work out here doing something that I love and that I honestly feel like I shouldn't get paid to do. Being a visual effects company, we get the footage after everything has been shot, and we're expected to add to the footage. And there's a very multi-step process involved in that.
A regular workday for me here at Pixamundo, as a CG generalist, it would be lighting, rendering, texturing, creating assets for whatever show that we're working on at the time.
After these multiple step processes, it finally reaches compositing, and I bring together all of the footage, the lighting, the CGI, the texturing, the camera movement, and just bring it all together into one, and we try to make it seem seamless. The end goal is to make the director happy and the clients happy, and we're willing to do anything to do that.
The coolest project that I've worked on for sure has to be The Mandalorian. Big Star Wars fan growing up. I know when I heard we got the gig, I was very, very excited about it.
I fell in love with Star Wars very early on, and the fact that I could say that I actually contributed to one of their projects is unbelievable. My number one thing that I love in this industry is the opportunity and the potential that one could have, and it's limitless. It literally is limitless. You can go travel all around the world, get paid a tremendous amount of money. There's just endless opportunity, and I'm ready to take it all on.
Having all my work finally, in front of me and realizing that, this is something I was a part of, it's very, very exciting. And just, going back home and showing all my friends, what I've worked on in the past few years, it feels pretty good.
I've worked very, very hard to get to this point at CCS, and the fact that just continuously pushing towards a certain goal, and it's a dream come true, honestly.
I like to think that many of the careers our alum have are dreams come true. So now I'm going to talk about Sharice Thornhill, another product design graduate from our school. When she was at CCS, she actually had a Nike internship her senior year that turned into a full-time role as a footwear designer, where she, for a decade, worked on shoes across multiple categories and countries and sports. She actually worked on the Jordan 16.5 that was worn by Dwayne Wade and the Zoom KB24, which was worn by Kobe Bryant. She said she actually had a really close relationship with him before he passed. Now, as the design director at SEED, or the School for Experiential Education and Design, she acts as a mentor and advocate for women from diverse backgrounds, creating further access into the Adidas brand and sportswear industry. So she actually teaches and helps young women who can't access, higher education. She teaches them how to get into this industry of footwear design. And she's making sure that there are voices that aren't typically heard, diversifying the perspectives in the footwear design industry. So this story is a really, really fun one. Henry Chrisman and Virginia Torrance are both craft and material studies graduates from our programs here at CCS. After they finished their time at CCS, they both completed their Masters of Fine Arts in Ceramics at Alfred University. So many of our students who are looking for secondary education can access that. And then in summer of 2019, they started a series of community ceramics classes through a pop-up shop they co-founded called Ceramic School. So another group of alum who are passing on their knowledge to their community, to people who can't typically access these spaces. And following a successful summer of classes, they actually held a Kickstarter fundraiser, which they were able to fund the renovation of a storefront that was attached to their house. And they created a whole new ceramic school in that home. This community art school is called Ceramic School. And it's an art school and an artist residency program located in Hamtramck, Michigan. And it offers classes, memberships, artist residencies, studio spaces, and public programs through a safe, supportive, critical, and communal platform for art making and education. So not only do they have their own individual practice as artists, but they're making space for other artists to learn and create work as well. I'm going to play this video of Brett Brentford, who is one of our communication design graduates, talking about his career as an interaction designer, which is a really cool opportunity for students interested in graphic design.
So my name is Brett Renfer. I graduated in 2008 as a graphic design major with this focus on interaction design. And so now I sort of oscillate between calling myself an interaction designer or experience designer. I primarily build experiences in spaces that use technology to try to connect people to stories, whether that be through exhibition or branding or just things that can happen among people in physical spaces. A lot of the things I do, use technology to allow people to really, really get hands-on in a way that they might not be able to. Like you can't, touch a painting usually, but you can touch something on screen and get, closer than you ever could. I had professor after professor where I would just say, start talking and rambling as much as I'm doing now, and they would just say, make something, like try it, do it. And that has actually become one of the driving forces of my career. Like I give workshops and I teach about prototyping, about making, about trying to think about ideas in space. There's so many different ways to tackle the creative process, and there's so much that you have to invest from yourself, personally, to really make these projects successful and meaningful. And that's the exciting thing about going to school where you do that,
Creative director of experience designer at Media, which is an agency in New York. So he, like you see in the video, builds all types of interactive experiences for brands like Google, JetBlue, Intel, even the Whitney Museum of Art. So just don't think that just because you're doing graphic design, it has to be in a consumer platform. It can be in art spaces as well. So next, I'd like to talk about Julie Rosinski, who is an interior design graduate from our school. And oftentimes when people think about interior design, they just think about, decoration, they think about maybe commercial or residential spaces. But Julie actually works as a color and trim designer for vehicle companies. So she actually works on advanced design and sustainable material development for future vehicles at GM. So she thinks about when you get into the interior of a vehicle, what is the siding, the panel made of? What are the colors that you see? What is the experience that you have when you're inside that vehicle? And what's really cool is Julie also uses her same eye for design language, for material, for color and texture in her own business. So in addition to working at GM, she has her own business called Fate and Coincidence, which is a jewelry business where she sells her unique pieces online and in about over 60 stores across the country and in Switzerland. So she has initiatives in place with her company where she does a vigorous recycling program. She uses vintage beads and reuses materials which would initially be thrown away, but she disassembles them and gives them new life. Her company's doing really, really well. Rachel Elise Thomas is a documentary photographer and collage artist who uses her art to explore African American life, culture, and tradition. To date, she has been published by the New York Times, the New Republic, Rolling Stone, the Marshall Project, InStyle, and countless other publications. And she's not only a photographer, she also uses her documentary photography as an art statement. So she actually has participated in 2 fellowships and 2 residencies programs thus far in her career. One of those was called Documenting Detroit, where it was a fellowship where she, along with 6 other Detroiters, did a project where they were documenting people's experiences during COVID-19. And hers was titled COVID Diaries, Stories of Resilience. So it was actually a part of a local news station, WDET's Storymakers Initiative. So she's telling stories, she's creating artwork, and she's moving narratives. So, all right, I'm gonna do a pause here and do a quick poll in the chat box. I want you all to tell me if you all come from families where your parents or your grandparents are artists. So I want you to let me know true or false in the chat box. I come from a family of working artists and designers. True or false? Oh, I see we have half and half here so far. There are some folks who come from a home where people are artists and some who don't. Well, I know sometimes it's kind of rare to come from a family where your parents or grandparents are working artists and designers. Taylor Longhals, he actually came from a line of car fanatics who all worked in the assembly plants for Jeep vehicles. So his grandfather, his father, his great-grandfather, they all spent their careers building Jeep vehicles. Taylor, however, wanted to find a way to take that family passion and marry it with his love for art and design. So he came and stayed at CCS for transportation design. And after graduating in 2012, well, actually before graduating in 2012, he interned in Jeep Studios, the same company where his family had worked for years, and then was hired on by FCA North America as a senior exterior designer, and then later became the chief designer of the new Jeep Wrangler pickup called the Gladiator, which you see on the screen here. So it's really cool that he's passing forward his family's legacy in the automotive industry, but through his creative lens from an art and design perspective. Let's see, gonna skip a few. Jillian Evelyn has an amazing story as an illustration graduate from our school. And illustration allows students to step into careers in a wide variety of industries. You can do fashion editorial illustration, you can do comic book illustration, graphic novel illustration, you can work in the entertainment industry. Jillian does illustration as a practicing studio artist, so she has her own fine art practice, if you will. But this image that you see here is a collaboration that she did with Billionaire Girls Club, where she actually did some fashion work with her illustration.
My name is Jillian Evelyn, and I am an artist living in Los Angeles, California. As an artist, I mostly paint acrylic on wood. My artwork is mostly figurative. It's minimal. I try to draw figures close to what they are, but also exaggerate and always take away and figure out ways that I can get across a mood or idea, but also take away and have the least amount of information going on. Yeah, and then also play with color. Color is always really important for me. I'm inspired by so many women. I mean, one of the artists that I was always really inspired by when I was like in high school and college was Frida Kahlo. Like, I always loved how personal her work is. She was always very honest and raw with the imagery that she painted. People like Patti Smith, like her writing, anytime I'm in a funk, like I can sit down and read one of her books and I'm immediately taken to a different place and feel empowered. I take from my own life and I take from the women that I surround myself with, and so they're a huge inspiration to the work that I make and the stories that I try to tell. The graphics and figures that I created for Billionaires Girl Club are focused around space and universe and the idea of women being creators and being bigger than this world. Through this capsule, I'm really hoping that women can see themselves as creators and makers and hopefully inspire more women to, collaborate and make more things, whether it's something just for themselves or if they're aspiring to be artists or any sort of creator, and to remember that they are bigger than they think and that they're powerful. I want to empower other women to continue to be creators and to make things and express themselves.
Well, in addition to opportunities like this amazing collaboration, Jillian has had her work featured in Juxtapose, Vice, Context, Art Miami, and other major fairs and publications. So next we'll talk about Sydney James, who's a Detroit native, another illustration graduate from CCS. She started off when she graduated with a successful career in advertising, film, and television in LA, but then found her purpose when she returned home to Detroit. Her work has been exhibited in numerous residencies and exhibits throughout Detroit, LA, San Francisco, Atlanta, Houston, Washington, DC, New Orleans, and New York. So she does both mural work as well as gallery work. So her gallery work, in addition, everything I just named was the places where she's exhibited her gallery work. But as far as her mural work, it's you can see it in cities like Detroit. She has several murals in Detroit, but also New Orleans, Atlanta, Los Angeles, Hawaii, and even Ghana in Africa. In 2017, she actually became a recipient of the prestigious Kresge Fellowship Award. And then this past summer 2021, she actually co-created a mural festival called the Blackout Walls Mural Festival, where 75% of the participating muralists and event producers were Black and or people of color, mirroring the demographics of the city of Detroit and thereby creating this cohort of artists representing equity and inclusion. So doing some really important work here in Detroit. Mario Moore is another illustration graduate who received his fine art degree from Yale University after graduating from here, and has been exhibiting his work throughout the country ever since. One of his paintings, Queen Mother Helen Moore, was actually featured at the exhibition, The Art of Rebellion, Black Art of the Civil Rights Movement, and then was purchased by the DIA for their permanent collection. And Mario is younger than 35 and already has a piece in the permanent collection of a major art museum, which is a huge deal. And that's just one of the many things that are on his long list of accomplishments. He actually recently received the esteemed year-long Princeton Harder Fellowship, and he was the 5th artist in the over 80-year history of this fellowship, the 5th visual artist to receive this award. So in 80 years, he's the 5th visual artist that they've chosen, which is a huge deal. Kevin Beasley is a fine art graduate from our school, from our art practice program. But he also studied automotive design at CCS before he graduated with that BFA in painting and sculpture. And he now holds an MFA in sculpture from Yale University as well. Again, many of our graduates are going on to get secondary degrees if they want them. His work includes sculpture, installation art, sound, and video. The Institute of Contemporary Art and Boston Museum featured his work, calling him among the most significant young artists working today. And Kevin was actually an artist in residence at the Studio Museum in Harlem and was selected for the 2014 Whitney Biennial. If you are not familiar with things that are prominent in the art world, look up the Whitney Biennial. It's the who's who of art makers in this country, in the world. And he actually had a landmark show there in the MoMA in New York. In 2013, the Huffington Post actually named Kevin Beasley one of the 30 Black contemporary art makers under 40 that you should know. And I'll only talk about a few more before we open it up for questions here at the end, because there's so many amazing stories that I could share, but I want to make sure we have time for questions. This is Veronica Scott. While she was majoring in product design at CCS, she actually took up the challenge posed by a class assignment to design to fill a social need. And she decided she wanted to tackle the issue of homelessness by designing a coat that transforms into a sleeping bag to help people who either can't get into shelters or who don't want to rely on shelters, people who want to maintain their sense of independence and dignity. And so, as designers all know, they know their first idea is not their best idea. So, she took this assignment out to the shelters across the city of Detroit getting feedback. And most of the feedback was positive. But in one instance, she actually got yelled at. A woman screamed at her and said, "We don't need coats, we need jobs." And Veronica actually took that feedback to heart and worked on designing a business model where she employs people to get a livable wage to then design these coats, which can then be donated. And so she actually started that enterprise. She called that business idea the Empowerment Plan. And it's a nonprofit that she runs now, where she trains and employs women who live in shelters so they can gain that skill of sewing and fabrication while they also earn a livable wage so that they can have a more stable living situation for their family. To date, and I have to always keep updating my numbers because they just keep growing. But to date, her company, what started as a class assignment with 3 workers, has grown rapidly to become a $4.5 million enterprise. She's donated now over 50,000 coats across the world in countries, 20 different countries across the world. And her organization has hired now more than 95 individuals, all of which who have moved from a homeless shelter into permanent housing within 4 to 6 weeks of working for her. And not a single person has fallen back into homelessness. Among her many accolades, Veronica is the youngest person to receive the JFK New Frontier Award, which is what she's receiving here on the left side of your screen. And Carolyn Kennedy said that she is changing the world one coat at a time. So there's so many stories. I can't even tell them all. Colin Turi is an amazing furniture designer from our Craft and Material Studies program. He was actually in a collaboration with NASA. He's one of the few artists who actually has work on the moon. A capsule of work was sent to the moon, and some of his metalsmithing work was sent along with it, which is so crazy. Simon Warniak just graduated in 2021. So I mean like a few months ago, but he's already making waves in the glass art community. So in addition to group exhibitions across the US and in Venice, Scott's work has been featured in one-person exhibitions at the National Center for Jewish Art in Dallas and the Longview Museum of Fine Arts in Longview, Texas. So his work is part of the permanent collections at that Longview Museum. In St. Petersburg, Florida, the Craighead Green Gallery in Dallas, and the Sandra Ainsley Gallery in Toronto represent his work. So he has work where he's just making this beautiful glass work that's being bought by both public and private collectors here in the US. Really fun fact, he was also featured on InTheKnow.com after an emotional TikTok of his grandmother seeing his work on display went viral. So his grandma saw his work and she was so proud. She was crying. He posted it to TikTok, and thousands upon thousands of people have seen not only his work, but the impact it has on people who view it. And last alum I'll talk about here is game developer Demarcus Holbrook. He's been working in the gaming industry for more than 15 years. And for the last 6 or so years, he's been working at Blizzard Entertainment, building an impressive body of work as a senior world builder. So he's worked on games for World of Warcraft and many other properties. So this is the type of stuff that folks are doing with a degree in art and design. They're designing video games, making art that we see in museums. They're opening schools. They're making opportunities for other artists and designers to impact the world by, creating accessibility. So I'd love to hear from you. Back to my interactivity here. Love to hear from you guys who are watching, you folks who are watching. Which of the stories today has been most inspiring or exciting to you? It's okay if you don't remember the alumni's name, but maybe it's a thing that they designed or a movie they worked on or a cartoon they created. I want you to let me know in the chat box here, what story today has been most inspiring for you all who are watching? Go ahead and let me know. Curious to know what stood out for you all. And I'll make it awkward. I'll wait until you type. I think maybe some folks are sleeping here. Oh, I see a story. I'll share these out loud. So one thing that was shared was, I think the Tim Flattery story was most inspiring because of the amount he was able to produce in just 30 years. That is kind of crazy to work on over 40 films in 30 years. That's like more than one film per year, right? And then Gwyneth said Simon Warnock. She hadn't heard about him in past talks. Yeah, Simon, that's because he just graduated. We had to get his story. He just graduated in May and is already doing amazing work in his career. I'm glad that story inspired you. All right, so to wrap up today, I just want to end with some few notes before we answer questions. And I want to talk about like what the opportunities for art and design really are out there. The demand for creativity is huge. In the US alone, there are nearly 700,000 art-centric businesses that employ millions of people, right? So in the US here, it's a little over 2 million artists and designers who are actively working, right? This is probably why the arts contribute to over $8 billion of the US economy recently. And that's more than agriculture and transportation, or agriculture or transportation, right? So you think about the transportation industry, that's huge. Or you think about agriculture. We all eat food, right? That's huge. But the arts actually contribute more. And globally, the cultural and creative economy provides 30 million jobs and generates over $2 trillion a year annually. And that's according to Ernst and Young. In fact, according to the National Endowment for the Arts, the visual arts employ more than the performing arts and sports industries combined, right? So when you think about like, oh, these careers sound inspiring, but how many are there out there for me? There are several, right? Everything you see is designed or created by someone. The shoes you wear, the clothes you wear, the illustrations on your cereal box, the TV shows you watch, the movies you love, YouTube content you create, right? The websites you visit, the art on your favorite t-shirt, the work on the walls of your favorite museums, the packaging on the products you buy, the furniture you're sitting on right now, and the computer that you're watching this on, and the phone you're watching this on. Right? Your favorite piece of jewelry, the vehicles that transport us across town or across the world, and every single filter on social media. All of these things are created and touched by designers, content creators, artists, craftspeople, media creators, and photographers. So if you have an interest in living out your purpose as an artist or designer, a craftsperson, a media creator, a content creator, I really hope you think about pursuing that path through a degree from an art school. And College for Creative Studies is an amazing opportunity to get you started on that path. So who knows? One day we may be telling your story, right? I'd love to be telling your story one day. So with that being said, I want to turn on my camera and open it up to questions. Do you all have any questions about careers in art and design, or careers careers specific to any majors? I'd love to answer those as well. Let's see. Most of my graduate with a specific degree, but moved on to work in a different field that they studied. Is there anything you would recommend to do or classes to take to maximize the value of the degree? That is an amazing question. So we do have many stories of alumni who major in one thing and go on to do something else. And that can be for a few different reasons, right? Because their path just takes them there, or their passions, find them in other places. But it's helpful to know that 84% of our alumni from CCS are working in a field related to their major. So the vast majority of students are doing what it is that they studied here at CCS. But to maximize the degree path, there's actually a lot of things built into the program here at CCS geared towards helping students maximizing the value of their degree, which is why we're actually one of the top value schools according to Money and Pay Scale magazine. When they looked at the salary ranges of our graduates, which you saw shortly a second here ago, was $51,000 to $81,000, that exceeds our average tuition cost, which is closer to $47,000, right? So the value is there. And the way that students are getting the return on investment for that value is through the different things that our career services department offers. So things like, I'll talk about a few of them. So one of those is internships. We actually have paid only internships at CCS where students, in addition to getting paid, can also earn credit while they're learning on the job. So this list is just a partial list of some of the companies where students have gone on to intern. So like I mentioned with Sharice, she did that internship with Nike that turned into a full-time job. I know when I was a student, I had 3 paid internships at different advertising agencies. That's why I majored in at CCS. Which led to my job working at an agency at the time called Team Detroit. So this is one of the opportunities that students have to maximize their degree plan. Another thing that we offer at CCS is called it's called Industry Day events, where companies actually come to campus to recruit students for their major. So the companies come and they look for, as you see here, an example on the left is from our illustration program, and on the right you see our product design industry day. But we host these events for all of the majors. So these companies the students are who are standing behind the table with their work on display, and the companies are going around actively recruiting. So students who participate in these events definitely maximize the value of their degree. They're accessing companies, not just here in the US, but over 100 companies who are international. So they're diversifying places where they can go and work. They're diversifying the industries that they're connecting to without having to step foot off campus. And then a big thing that I almost spoke to earlier was the sponsored studio projects that we have. So these are opportunities where students are in the classroom setting, working with actual companies on assignments. So this is an example from our craft and material studies department, where our fiber and textile students are working on pattern design. So they're learning the same techniques that they would need to learn in order to do pattern design, both traditional and digital techniques, but they're actually doing this assignment for a real client. So the client was Gildan Grace. They're a wallpaper company. They do adhesive wallpapers. You see the students actually pitching their assignments to the clients, getting feedback. The students all had their work sold by Gildan Grace and actually received royalties, which means they were paid for this assignment. So that maximizes the value of what they're learning in the class, because the work they're producing actually has real world implications, right? That work in their portfolio stands out. That work on their resume stands out because it's real world industry in the classroom. So these are a few of the many ways that students are maximizing the value of their degree. We also have other opportunities that allow students to maximize their degree, like taking minors. So students who are multi-passionate at CCS can study one area and minor in another. We have both studio and liberal arts minors. So for example, if you came and studied film, but you also wanted to write, right? You'd have more skill sets on your resume if you also studied creative writing. Or if you wanted to work in the art education space, you were art education major with one of our BFA programs, but you want to use that to parlay into a career at art therapy, you would minor in art therapy, right? So thinking of someone like Julie Ruzinski, who majored in interior design, I think she also minored in, I want to say, in our entrepreneurial studies focus, which helped her to run her business, right? To start her business. So there are a lot of ways to maximize your education that way. And then we also have an entrepreneurial studies concentration, like I just mentioned, where you can gain specific skills like money management for artists and designers, branding and self-image management, advanced business skills for artists and designers. These things help, as well as study abroad and exchange programs that allow you to get experiences across the world. That also helps. So there are a lot of ways to maximize the value of a degree at CCS. The degree in and of itself is valuable, but if you want to lump on top of that, there are a lot of ways that you can do that. And all of that is available on the link that April just pasted in the chat box, which is our career and internships page of our website, our career development page. So hopefully, Dakota, that answer was thorough and helpful. Any other questions? Any questions about careers and specific degree plans or paths? Any questions about what careers you could do that you may be interested in? Any questions? I'm gonna give it a second. I know sometimes there might be a delay. None? Okay. Awesome. Well, if you'd love to get more information about CCS or creative careers, other alumni stories, or pursuing your creative path, please scan this middle QR code. That is our admissions folder where you can get access to our YouTube channel. We have a ton of alumni interviews where some of the people that you saw in the presentation, we're actually talking to them live. You get to get a deep dive on their story and much, much more. So I just want to thank you all for taking time out of your evening today to come and learn about creative careers. And hopefully now you can imagine some of the many amazing things that artists and designers get to do for a living. Hope you all have a great evening. Stay safe, stay warm, and we'll see you at the next College for Creative Studies event. Bye.